Guys, I'm Ray Hughes. You're listening to the Friday Frothy. What a fantastic show.
The Friday Frothy. The Friday Frothy.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Friday Frothy here again in the Frothy Bar. Glennie, how are you, mate?
Oh, fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
Mate, it's special tonight. We have a fantastic guest, and his name is Mick Webb.
Mick Webb.
Probably a lot of people out there wouldn't have heard of Mick Webb, Gleno, but they're going to.
They will, because he was one of the lead mechanic on the Moffat, Jimmy Richards, and Colin, Bond.
Peter Brock.
Keep going.
Peter Brock. He's worked for Peter Brock, HCT. He's worked for everyone. He's been around the world. He's been to Monza. He's been to Le Mans. He's been to Bathurst. He was going to Bathurst this weekend.
He said he's around 70, but he's just got a few stories, mate. And I'll tell you what, he's a sensational man.
And he's bringing out a book very soon, so stay tight for that, because we'll bring it to you here in the Friday Frothy, 100%. So this is the Friday Frothy, and this is Mick Webb. Hello, Mick. Can you hear me?
Yep. How you going, mate?
Good, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
That's my pleasure.
Mate, if you can just give us a quick outline, a brief of your career so far.
My career so far is just about bloody over. What are you talking about? I'm 7 years old.
We're all getting older, Mick.
I started, it was really easy. I was very, very lucky and fortunate. I started at Stillwell Ford. It was probably the biggest Ford dealer in Australia at the time, back when I was 19 years of age, and worked there for a couple of years. And within 2 years, I took over his race team, and then started continuing on building the race cars, the Formula Fords. We won the Formula Ford Championship in the first year, the inaugural year it ever come to Australia. With Larry Perkins, and then the following year, the first year was with Richard Knight, and the second year was with Larry Perkins. And then we continued on, and we got a Ford Escort out from Allan Mann from England, and we ran the Touring Car Championship, and then we converted it and built a sports sedan, and I built the engines for that, the twin cam engines, and then the BDA, the little 4-valve belt-driven drive assembly engines come out from England, so we ran them, and that's where I met. In those days, when you went to a race meeting, you worked at the local Ford dealer team, Ford dealers, and I met Moffat.
Yep.
So that's the early days of my association started with Allan Moffat.
So what year would that have been?
Well, it was with Stills. We ran the phase 1s and phase 2s at Bathurst, and that's how I met Moffat. And then so it was, you're talking 1969, 70 was the first years I went to Bathurst.
Yeah, okay. Wow. So you were there when he was with Colin Bond?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
I built the engine that Colin Bond drove, the first race meeting he ever drove a Falcon at Sandown.
Wow.
And we blitzed the field, and it was a special engine I built for Colin. It was a non-championship race, so we made sure Colin definitely won in a Ford that day.
Yeah.
And Mick, was you there with the 1 and 2 race at Bathurst?
The 1-2 in 1977, the 1-2, I stepped out of the team.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
I don't want to sort of go into it. I didn't see eye to eye with Carol Smith.
Yep.
And I think it was beneficial for the team for me to walk away and go back to my own business.
Yeah, okay. So how long were you with the team for?
Well, I worked with Allan at different times from the phase 3s. I'd help him with race meetings because it was run by Ford in those days, and I was working for Ford dealers and things like that. And then I was doing his Mustang for him on the off chance, and then I did all the 76. When the Ford dealer team got announced, I built and maintained the cars in 76, 75, 76. Yep. Went to the Yuyangs for the test for the big press day and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
And then when after Carol Smith had departed, because he was employed by Ford, he wasn't employed by Allan. Ford got him out to manage the team because they were, they thought Allan couldn't manage it all properly. He was a fantastic driver.
Yeah.
So they got Carol Smith out to manage the team.
Yeah, okay.
And then I continued on with him at different eras of the Falcons, the Federation Falcons, and the bits and pieces, and then all the way through until the Mazdas come out, and I ran the whole Mazda program.
Oh, so you were with him with the RX-7s?
Yep, I was with him from day one with the RX-7 and ran all the Mazda. We built the cars, and
Do you know?
I eventually, initially there we got 12A engines sent out from Japan, and when they were coming to a bit of a standstill, I started rebuilding them. They sent a Japanese engineer out who'd been in America for 5 years, and so he gave me the rundown on the engines. So all of a sudden I was a bloody rotary expert, bloody overnight.
Yeah.
But, I still have guys ask me today, but I haven't got a bloody clue what they're talking about. I can do a peripheral port race engine, a factory peripheral port, but I wouldn't have a bloody clue. I don't have a bloody rotary. They ask me about questions about it, and I said, the side ports and extended ports and all sort of stuff, and I said, sorry, boys, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
That's crazy. I got to tell you, sorry, Glennie. Sorry, I've jumped in here. I've watched Bathurst.
Can Glenn say something?
No.
Won't get a word in there.
I've watched Bathurst all my life, every year. I just love it. And there's nothing more iconic or anything fresher in my memory than Moffat in the RX-7 on the grid. That's, yeah. How does that make you feel, listening to that?
Oh, yeah. Well, say again, I can't hear you. Industrial deafness ever since those bloody rotten little Mazdas. What are you talking about?
They weren't that loud, were they?
What was your relationship with Allan Moffat in general, Mick, outside racing and in?
In that era, we were best mates.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
He was a hard taskmaster, but he was the most professional, hardest guy you'd ever want to work. He was fantastic. He pushed for those last every tenth of a second.
Yeah.
And he'd go to bed of a night, and the next morning he'd come in, and like when we were building the RX-7, for instance, he'd come in and sit in the car. We had a big assembly plate. I've ever seen Moffat's workshop. They had a massive big assembly plate that we built the cars on, so you knew the car was dead square and flat and like a massive jig. And Allan would come in and sit in the car, and he'd sit there for 6 hours.
Wow.
We'd give him his lunch in the car, and he'd be saying, I need the clutch pedal moved to the left by 3 mil. And I need the footrest raised by 1 mil. I need the accelerator,
Yeah.
And he was a perfectionist.
Back in that time, was that unusual? Was everyone similar to that, or that was just Allan Moffat's way?
Nah, I've been very, very fortunate in life. I ran Brock's team in 86, 87. I've worked with Colin Bond, who was an absolute superstar. And I've built engines for Jim Richards and been one of Jim Richards. But he's been one of my best mates for years since he come to Australia.
Yep.
Jim you could put the clutch pedal on the passenger floor. Jim would still go fast.
Yeah.
He just jumped in and drove it. He was an all-round superstar. Colin Bond was very, very similar. He could drive anything. You know, and the record showed, from rally cars to bloody whatever. But Allan was one of those guys that everything had to be perfect.
Yeah, okay.
So, and it was more of a mental thing with Allan, I think, in lots of ways. He'd really focus himself and he'd have to get psyched into it.
Yeah. Yep. I'll put you on the spot here, I don't expect you to answer this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Who would you rate out of all these people? You've talked about Brock Moffat, Alan Grice, Larry Perkins, Colin Bond. I know who's got the fastest car on race day usually wins, but who do you think is the better driver out of all of those guys? I'll throw in Johnson as well.
Well, I don't know. I'm very biased because my best mate. You're asking me to bloody...
I didn't even say Richards.
He's going against Jimmy Richards, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Richards.
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jim's a superstar.
He's a legend. Absolute legend.
Yeah, it's like Allan is bloody not far behind him. You can't knock Brock because he's record, but Brock had more money than anybody all the way through his career.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody says, oh, you know, how come bloody Brock can beat Moffat so much and you reckon Moffat's better?
Yep.
Brock was fortunate that he had Marlborough and Holden for years and years and years, and then he had Mobil for years and years, and he had Mega Bucks.
Mm.
You know, Allan was working for a shoester. We were living out the ashtray some years,
Yeah.
What?
and
Just
we didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
what was the sponsorship like then in those days? Because my old man, when he was alive, mate, he was like Rothman cigarettes. You know, with your cricket and all that, your Winfield, and as you just said, Marlborough, and
It all was. John Player Special.
did that have a big part?
Well, I think in 1980 we rocked the system with Peter Stuyvesant.
Yes, that's
We thought we did with Peter Stuyvesant and Mazda. We had just over $1 million,
Woof.
$1 million, which you know today the V8 Supercar team's probably got a $20 million budget.
So back then, all the drivers, Mick, did they get on well together? We interviewed Todd Hazelwood not long ago, and he was saying that the guys now sort of keep a little bit to themselves. Back in those days, were they all good friends and hung out together and have beers, or was it really cutthroat back then?
No, cutthroat. They were all like Allan was just so professional. He didn't associate with anybody. Nowadays he does, but in those days he wouldn't have even spoken to them.
Yep.
The crews, and Moffat even didn't like us talking to Brock's crew because we'd all drink beers together, and as soon as the race was over, in the Sydney, into King's Cross, we'd go into a little bar there or into a little flues joint or wherever, and buddy, we was talking to all the boys and girls and whatever, and we're all mates. And you know, like, and I got on with a lot of the people, and I got on with, but a lot of the team, Brock was pretty much to himself. Bondy was different. Bondy spoke to everybody. He was fantastic. Jim Richards spoke to everybody. He was fantastic.
Yep.
But a lot of most of them didn't. They weren't social friends.
Yeah.
But they are today after they've retired.
Racing from like now, Mick, to then. What's the? Obviously, everything's now all computerised and a lot more. Is that what's your take on it? Is it better, or was it better back then?
Oh, I don't think there's any question, and I think 90% of the people and the spectators are still around. The old days were the best form of motor racing there ever was.
Yeah.
You know, because those guys had to drive through the seat of their pants, and they had to hold on to the bloody steering wheel for grim death because they didn't have bloody comfort seats in them that were worth bloody $10,000 and bloody air conditioners and bloody cool suits and bloody all this crap they got nowadays. They couldn't survive in the old days. Like,
No.
You know, Allan would get out of the car. At Bathurst, Allan would get out of the car, and I'd do the right-hand front, and he'd jump out, and he'd still be pumped with adrenaline. And the moment the car took off, he would collapse, and I'd have to grab him and lift him over, and he was drenched. And I'm not quite sure that it was perspiration or piss, I might add, but I had to lift him up over the fence, and and that's how he was. He was just, and those guys are heroes.
Yeah.
For what they
certainly
did
mine.
and the cars they drove and things like that compared with this today. Today they're bloody like sitting in a bloody lounge room. You've seen them when that's bloody this e-racing. They can drive the e-racing the same as they drive their own bloody cars.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so true.
Yeah.
It is crazy. So are you a driver as well, or just purely engineer mechanic?
I'm a complete all-round superstar.
Here we go. Let's
told you what.
Now we're getting into it. Tell me more.
No, I had a couple of. I drove all the cars I ever worked on. I always made sure I got my bum in the seat because I'm a typical bloody mechanic. I was always going to be Ayrton Senna's brother, and I thought I was better than him. And when you're a mechanic, you always want to be a driver. And from the early days of driving, the Stillwell Ford Escort and things like that. And then when the Thunderdome started, I drove a HQ out the Thunderdome and an Oscar.
Yep.
And honestly, it was the best fun I've had in my life.
Is that right?
Mm.
I sometimes watch Daytona and stuff like that and just going around and around and around, and I think, I just don't see that would be much fun. But you think it's great?
Well, if you ever get Jim Richards on, or he comes to a couple of kart shows with Jim and car clubs with Jim, and you know, there's always the guy out there in the audience who yells out which was the best form of motor racing he ever did.
Yeah.
Jim, first off, it's Thunderdome.
Is that right?
And you know the amount of different types of things Jim's done, because to Jim, it was bloody good racing. It was really, really close. It was super competitive. And then everybody after it had a beer and a barbie and talked together, and it was just more friendship. It was the camaraderie.
social.
Was fantastic.
Yeah. Look, I'd love to get Jim on and talk to him about Targa, doing racing around.
Targa's been a
Yeah.
big thing.
Oh, he'll do it. Jim's the most applicable bloke known to man. He'll do it with you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not quite sure he'll be able to log in and do all this sort of stuff, though.
Now listen, well, you're talking about you driving and getting into the seats of these cars and checking them out and stuff. I'm gathering you've driven around Bathurst, Mt Panorama. It's one of my favourite tracks, as you can probably tell. You would have driven on the track before Conrod Straight got the chase put in it.
Yep.
How hard was it really to pull up these cars?
Oh, Conrod Straight was just an almighty, you know, even in a road car, because like we had to sneak around and try and get the speed up. You know, we were bedding brakes in some years. We went up there and we could do a few laps in the night time and things like that. But the cops were just dynamite in those days, so we had to be bloody careful all the time.
But the actual cars back then, I mean, other than the RX-7, but the heavier things, the GT Falcons and Monaros and stuff like that, how the hell did they get them around the track and how did they pull them up?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, you'd be surprised if I showed you some of the brake pads, and you know, I wish they were. I didn't even own a camera in those days, and you pull the brake pad out, and the whole backing plate was bent like a boomerang and things like that, because the guy would be pushing that bloody hard, and it just bend the bloody brake pads, and people couldn't comprehend that's how much pressure they had to push on.
And I'm not saying a lot here, but the difference, just to give us a gauge, the difference of the braking power that they would have had to do compared to the current V8 supercar drivers. I mean, are they pushing the brake as hard as what they are?
There's no comparison.
No.
The V8 supercars today have got brakes that are ginormous, like the diameter of the discs, the diameter of the wheel, so they can fit a massive big diameter disc in, and with 6 piston calipers, they could probably use their big toe in the brake pedal and it wouldn't have been a problem. Where the old days, you had to push the almighty hell and you were bloody, you know, using every bloody effort you could, you'd push the brake pedal.
Yeah, Mick, Ford and Holden gone. Where does it leave supercars, mate?
Yeah, bloody good point. Well, you know, they're all exactly the same cars. It's only just stick-on panels, so they could put any bloody panels on them.
Yeah.
Because all the chassis are identical, and this is where a lot of guys, you know, don't, you know, the public out there think, you know, God, they're bloody Fords and Holdens. So the only thing that Ford and Holden on those cars is the badge on the front. And half of them are made in China anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're just totally different types of cars nowadays. They're, you know, I don't know if they should have gone down this path. They could have, you know, God, they could have gone to a NASCAR path and put a bloody FE Holden body shell on it. You know, like, who knows? Like, the V8 supercars today is now just, it's going to be Mustangs and Camaros. And,
Yeah.
And like, I don't think there's too many other car companies that are going to get involved. It's just, you know,
No.
they've been knocking on a few doors, but nothing's happening.
What are your thoughts on like the old slogan for Bathurst was what wins on race day sells on Monday? Obviously, was a very true slogan. But do they need to go back to like a Group E racing and go back to factory cars or?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's that many manufacturers. Like, you look at some of the old footage of some of the old Bathurst when there was bloody, you know, 20, 30 different mates out there and all different classes.
Yeah.
V8 supercars are so powerful nowadays. Like, you know, it's like the support categories even go with them. They don't even get a fair run even with them.
Yeah.
You know, because they're all time certain on television because their sponsorship and the amount of money involved with it today is just ruling the roost.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, and I don't think you'd get a series production class, you know, up and running again because there's not enough bloody, you know, as I say, Ford don't make any cars here, Holden don't make any cars here, and like, you know, what are you going to have? Well, you might have a Kia Stinger into it, and that'll blitz a lot of them.
Kia. Go to Kia.
Yeah.
Put a Kia sticker. I got one of my favourite, and I'm sure yours as well, is the touring car masters you get to see, and I think you're involved with Jim Richards in that.
Yeah, well, when Jim was racing, I was heavily involved, and I did his engine. I still do a few engines in touring car masters. I did a lot of them a few years ago, and we've been in it for years. I don't know, over 15 years since it virtually started. I did a heap of Camaros, and we built a couple of Camaro for a customer of ours, and then we ran Jim's car, and we helped Jim build the AMC Javelin, and I'm actually going to Bathurst this next weekend with Wayne Mercer, who runs an XY GT.
Yeah, okay.
A blue XY GTO show.
So are you going there as a spectator or working?
Well, hopefully I'm going there as a spectator.
If things don't go wrong.
I don't really feel like doing too much bloody work. But the difference is those cars, to give you an idea, like Jim's little engine when we did the 289 thing with his Falcon Sprint was probably one of the best little engines I built. It had 586 horsepower out of a 289. And Jim was revving it to 82, and then when we converted to a 302 in the last couple of years, it made 630 horsepower.
Wow.
And Jim just couldn't believe it. It was phenomenal.
Wow.
The 351 Cleveland, we run in this Wayne Mercer's XY GT, makes 738 horsepower.
No way.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it's just phenomenal. Like, it's just out of this world.
So the 289 of Jim's, you're talking about the Javelin, he dominated in that. And he was up against the 351s and the 350 Chevs and stuff like that. It must have been an amazing motor builder.
Well, there was the category was controlled in those days. Well, you're dead right there, mate. I totally agree with you there.
Classic.
Yeah, but there was the category looked after everybody. Like Jim's with the 289 was allowed. I'll give you a rough idea. Was 1,400 kilos. He was allowed to rev to 82. If you ran a 351, you were only allowed to run the 7.5.
Oh.
You had more horsepower, but you only allowed to run the 7.5, and you were 1,600 kilos. So Jim was a little bit lighter, and we could use more revs, and they tried to keep the parity as close as we could.
Yep.
But we had the nut behind the wheel, and a lot of those guys didn't have the ability that Jim had, and Jim drove very, very well, and he's a fantastic, as I said before, he's fantastic. But
yeah,
that little engine went really well, and we looked after it. We had Shannon's response. Shannon's been fantastic all the way through Jim's career.
But just let's go on to SVO. So you were the actual creator or the starter of the special vehicles operation in Australia, is that right?
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Well, it came about because of my days at Stillwell's. I was always it was my idea to talk Bib Stillwell to building a VS Stillwell Special. And when we purchased, actually I just posted it on Facebook the other day because someone sent me a copy of it. When they black band and pulled the pin on the face for Falcon, Bib as a Ford dealer was lucky enough to purchase all the parts.
Cool.
So we started, we were grabbing sort of standard Falcon 2 doors or 4 doors and things like that. And I'd rebuild the engine and put a lot of the phase 4 parts on them. And we made, we lowered them, we put a bit of a suspension package in them, and we just put a different exhaust on them. And I kept saying to Bib, there's a market here for a special vehicle business.
Yep.
And, and this was pre-Brock even, because Brock was, early days of HCT and whatever, they were just racing. They weren't doing HCT cars. And when we did a few of them, but then he didn't really want to persevere with it because Ford didn't really want us to do it and things like that. And then when I went to work for myself, it wasn't until sort of 85, 86 that I got my normal XF Falcon Ute. And I bloody, put a good set of wheels on it and lowered it and decided to paint the, we modified it a little bit. And next minute we got customers coming in saying, can we have one of them? and we had one of them. And myself and my brother, I said to my brother, this is a bloody good idea. Like, we can build, we can do our own little special vehicle. And so, to cut a long story short, we designed a wheel, which was, in all respects, very similar to an AMG or a Lorenzo wheel, which was a really modern-looking thing that we thought. And in those days, what I did was I took photos of the wheels. We'd get them drawn up, and I'd take a photo of it and blow it up to 16-inch, because that 16-inch wheels were unheard of, back in the late 80s. And then we'd stick them on the cars, take photos of it, all the different sort of styles we had to see which one we thought looked the best. And then we did the suspension and things like that. Well, I got built, lucky enough, I got good at shape with Bilstein. Wheel, suspension, tyre. We were lucky that we had Dunlop on board in those days. And we did a little, we changed the grille. We did a little subtle rear spoiler and a little bib on the front. And like, as I said to people when we designed the car, we're catering from 18 to 88. I wasn't I didn't think the market was there to have a big hoon rear spoiler and, have it sitting on its guts on the ground and things like that. We wanted to sell it to everybody. Yeah. And in those days, Max Granston was the president of Ford, and I showed him the car. He was down at Allan Moffat's workshop, actually. And I said to Max, and this is when they were getting lots of bad publicity with the EA Falcon. And I know I was really struggling because, the cabs whinging and moaning that the tyres are wearing out and bloody 5,000 kilometres. And they were just, they didn't handle, they wandered all over the road and things like that. And I said to Max, have a drive my car. And he was gone for about half an hour. And even Allan said, shit, I hope he bloody hasn't crashed it on you, And anyway, he arrived back and he said, this car is beautiful. Can you bring it out? I want you to show the engineers out at Ford. And, the engineers and the bean counters control Ford Motor Company. The marketing people don't really. And I finished up going out at a meeting with Ford and showed them what we did to the suspension, showed them what we did to the wheel alignment, and we changed everything. And we turned the car into a lovely, lovely car and drove beautiful. And hence we had fantastic write-ups of Wheels magazine and Motor magazine, and everybody raved about how good it was. Yeah. And, and the long and short of it, people don't understand, we sold more cars with SVO than Brock did in his heyday at HTT.
Okay. Is the SVO, did that go on to become part of the Ford team?
No, see, where I picked up on the SVO thing, SVO in America is registered by Ford America. Yep. Because that was their special vehicle operations in America. And we were looking at what we're going to call the car. Do I call it a bloody, Mick Webb was just a mechanic, an old bloody, a race mechanic. I can't call it Mick Webb's car. And so we thought, shit, we'll try and register. Why don't we should register this name? Oh, Ford loaned that, and they didn't. So I registered SVO with FVO Motorsport in Australia, and then paid, had it properly registered. And Dick Johnson also tried to register it. But because Dick, when they put it to the patents office, Dick just, the company he had do it for him, just typed SVO, where I'd made my SVO a little bit more design smarter. I put the S into the V and made it look a bit fancier. And mine got approved and Dick Johnson's didn't.
Oh, wow.
He would have made happy.
Yeah,
No.
which was a bit of a feather in my hat, because I remember Dick saying something one day about, you better take that SVO badge off, I've got that registered. I said, no, you haven't, mate, I have.
Because his Mustang that he raced, it had SVO on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah.
That was when he was trying to, that was late 80s, and that the green tough Mustang, he had SVO on that.
Yeah. So he didn't own it.
No.
In your team, Mick.
I didn't sue him, though.
No.
just jumping off that, on race day with your team, you got the guys doing the working down on the grid and everything else. How many mechanics? Is it just you that oversees the car, say for Jimmy Richards, or how many mechanics on race day? Well, this is for the viewers.
Well, with the TCM team, when we had there, we had Jim was lucky. Well, we were lucky in the little team. We had Jim Rich. A good old mate of Jim's was Brian Golding, and he looked after the tyres. He came to all the race meetings and looked after the tyres. So we knew the tyre presses were right and things like that. And we had another guy that we hired, virtually came along as a mechanic that would do, he'd do the jacking up of the car and getting the wheels on and off and a bit of a roustabout. And Jim had another guy that we used to help with the builds of the car. He'd come with us, and myself.
Okay.
Have you ever had to do one of these crazy, the car was smashed the day before the race and you had to get it going and overnight?
Question.
Oh, yeah, we did that. The Camaro we built this for Bill Pye. He's deceased now. He was a fantastic bloke that I really got really good friends with and things like that. He was a farmer from up bloody Canamble way up in the middle of New South Wales. And I remember going to Darwin with him, and he, on the bloody, the second practice session, he went out and stuffed it into the wall, and I mean, he just about wrecked it. We pulled panels off and bloody had the bloody panel. All of a sudden, your mechanic panel beater come everything. And we repaired them overnight. And, that probably didn't look the prettiest thing in the world, race the next day.
What in your own garage, mate, at home? What do you got sitting there, mate?
Interesting.
I've got a 2016 Falcon Sprint, the V8 Supercars Sprint. I got one of them.
Yeah.
I've got a EB SVO Falcon that I did.
Yep.
And I've got an XG Falcon SVO Ute. And I've got an XH XR6.
Wow.
So you're Ford man through and through?
Oh, fit off through and through, yeah. I've got a tattoo on my ass.
Don't show us.
Without mucking around, say people have got a bit of an idea in, say, just one of the cars that you got there, what sort of dollars are we talking about if you went to sell it on the market?
Oh, the Sprint's probably worth between 80 and 90.
Yep.
Like, there's none of them are $1 million cars. Like, I haven't got that. I had a Phase 3. I bought a Phase 3 brand new.
Yep.
When I worked for Stillwells. And I was like 20 years of age. Bought the yellow glow, the bright yellow one.
Yeah.
And
sexy.
had it for 10 days, I think. And when I had a meeting with Bibb, and he promoted me to run the race team and as the boss.
Yep.
And he gave me a company car. And I was standing there in the workshop and talking away to him, and I saw, fantastic, it's really good. And I looked over at the Phase 3 sitting there, and he said, don't worry about that, I'll take it back and give you all your money back. Because he knew I'd borrowed £2,000 off my mum.
I bet you wish you kept it.
Oh, gosh. And I've had a few GTs. I've had lots of GTs.
Yeah.
But, you buy and sell cars, you don't, I didn't have the money to, I'm being a poor bloody mechanic here. Like, you don't have money to keep cars and buy new ones, and like a lot of these guys are today. And some have been very fortunate. Some bought them years ago and have been very, very fortunate. And good luck to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a mate down here in Burnie. Both us guys know him. He's the head mechanic of the Burnie City Council. He's got a beautiful looking SLR 5000 sitting in his workshop, mate, and it looks bloody great.
I've done a bunch of engines for guys in Tassie, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the fastest one I did was a guy in Hobart, a battling abalone fisherman.
Battling,
and
right,
Battling.
He's battling. He's a battler.
I bet.
And we built a BA Falcon Ute for him. And we did virtually the early stages of it. And don't get me wrong, I did we put the 9-inch in it and put all the bloody support for the bloody parachute on the back, and did all the suspension and had the special shockers done, and I did the engine for him, and we got special heads out for it. And then it was not a bad old thing, and he ran on the salt flats.
Oh, all right.
And within a couple of years, he put nitrous on it and did different stages of nitrous and things like that, and had a few burnouts, and then they burned the engine down, and that sent it back to me, so I rebuilt it again. And the year before, probably 4 years ago, he cracked 225 miles an hour out of it.
Where was that, around the racetrack, Mick, or what?
Fisherman-
For
Sorry,
all the
mate?
police out there?
Whereabouts?
Over in Lake Eyre.
Lake Eyre.
Oh, yeah. Right, okay.
Yeah, he took over in Lake Eyre,
Wow.
and he's on his way over there again now. He's to run it again this year. He's now supercharged it. He's had a guy down in Tassie do the engine, and with 1,400 horsepower, and so he's
Whoa.
trying to crack 250 mile an hour.
Holy hell.
Wow.
What's going on?
Bloody hell. So what's the most amount of money that someone has spent on a motor? How high can it get?
Well, a TCM engine's about a $65,000 engine. Yeah,
Right.
if someone comes in tomorrow and said how much to build, they're probably close to 70 today.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Big dollars, isn't it? One more thing, mate. Do you come down to Tassie, or did you used to come down to Tassie, either to Simmons Plains or Baskerville?
I've raced at Simmons Plains a million times, and I've been to Baskerville half a dozen times, and things like that. Yeah, I love Tasmania.
Yeah.
What's your favourite track outside Bathurst, Mick, all over Australia?
Probably Phillip Island.
Phillip Island, yeah.
Yeah, Phillip Island. Like my best track in the world, I think, was Belgium, the Spa race. The Belgium circuit at Spa is sensational.
Okay, so
The drive
you're
down there is
you're travelling the world as well?
Yeah, I've raced all around the world. As I said, I've done Le Mans a couple of times with Allan. I've raced at the Spa 24-hour race with both Brock Moffat and John Harvey. The late John Harvey, John was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
We've raced raced in America at a few tracks. I've run Daytona, the Daytona 500. I've done the Speed Week at Daytona.
Bloody hell.
Rode Lander, half a dozen tracks in the States. I've run at Monza. Because the car behind me, I don't know who can see all this, but the car directly behind me in my lunchroom is the VL Commodore that we raced at the World Touring Car Championship with John Harvey and Allan Moffat.
Right.
And we won the first round. We won the first round of the World Touring Car Championship.
Yeah.
And we won at Monza in Italy.
And that's actually on the picture now, is it? We can see behind.
Just behind me. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
I'll be watching. I'll be checking it out.
Cool. We'll get to have a look at it.
That photo is what Holden gave me when we got home. That's coming round the hairpin at Spa.
Nice
So
shot.
that was the Rothmans Commodore.
The Rothmans Commodore. Yeah.
El Rouge, La Rouge or something, I think they call the corner.
Yep. Yep. Wow. So what's the highlight of your career, Mick, and you're travelling around the world or in Australia? What's the...
Well, I can't remember her name.
Make one up.
People often say that to me in car clubs and things like that. I really don't have a highlight. I've been very, very, very
Highlights.
fortunate. I've been, as I said, I'm 71, and I've been lucky enough to be. I started as an apprentice because I wanted to be a mechanic, and I've been so lucky to be able to work on things I love doing.
Yeah.
Sure, we get pains in the arse, customers coming every now and then, but 90% of it, I still love doing it today.
Yep.
And, I still get a buzz out of it. I get an enjoyment out of it. I'm getting run off to Bathurst next week. But, like all the circuits around Australia, I love them all. Like, sure, Bathurst is the pinnacle race, I suppose you'd call it. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's, in some ways, yes, it's a fantastic circuit, but Phillip Island's the balls to wall circuit. If you can drive, you're any good, you go good at Phillip Island.
So, Mick, any young budding mechanics coming through, do you obviously get them coming up to pick your brains and want to, have it sit down and talk to you and see what it's all about, especially with the racing game?
Yeah, I tell them I tell them not to be a bloody motor mechanic. You'll be working at 70 years of age.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Mate, we've got a good
I
friend.
don't believe that.
Good friend up in Queensland, Jason Pearson from Pearson Automotive, and he was mechanic for one of the guys doing fairly well in the Super 2s, and he was telling us about how often he's away from home and the hours, what you're talking about, staying up all night fixing cars. Geez, it must be hard work.
Well, it is. Look, to give you an idea, 1980 when we built that yellow Peril for XD for Moffat, I didn't go home. I didn't go home for 8 days. I slept in the workshop floor for 8 days in a row, and I didn't get paid for it.
Really?
Like,
that's
I was paid. Lots of the mechanics that work on race teams don't get. No, that era never got paid. Like it was always minimum wages. And even today, a lot of those guys who've had supercar teams, they're not all on bloody 100+ a year. They're on just basic wages. They're not really, and they're on call 24/7.
They're always away from home.
Yeah.
Well, see, a lot of people would know that. That's very
And like,
interesting.
I've got 5 children. I've got 3 to my first wife and 2 to my second wife. I didn't see a lot of my first three kids grow up
Yeah.
because I was away motor racing all the time.
Yeah. It is tough. But there again, you've got so many great bloody stories to tell, and you've seen the world. And
We're attempting to write a book, so it's all going to come out in the book, and we'll get it all happening then. I'm not quite sure if I can write all the stories down because my grandkids might read them.
they got to learn.
For a guy that's been in the racing trade as long as you have, mate, I reckon it'd be sensational read, and you're a character.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How far away you reckon that is, Mick?
It's a couple of months away, I think.
Really?
Bits and pieces of it. I've got to get a little bit more down. Trying to get these journos to bloody. The trouble is, we start doing it overnight. We start having a few frothies, and then we get too bloody pissed, and I can't remember what I fucking told him.
Definitely interested in the book though.
Oh yeah, mate. I'll be first in the lineup to grab your book.
One of those.
absolutely.
100%.
No problem.
100%. So, and next time you're down in Tassie, mate, give us a yell. We'll meet up and have a few beers.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds bloody brilliant. Well, mate, thank you so much for coming on. It's just been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I was just going to
No
say,
worries
Mick,
at all.
thanks for your
Anytime, guys.
patience and
That's all right.
a sensational career, and hope there's a bit more to come, mate.
Buddy, thank you so much, mate. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, you're a champion. Trooper.
No worries.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Mick.
it. We'll talk soon.
See you, mate.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.
And of course, Glenn, wouldn't be right if we didn't mention our sponsor here of the Friday Frothy. Guys, if you're out there and you've got a deck, a pergola, or anything to do garden or landscaping in Hobart, give Corey a call. He'll come out and give you a good price and good service. He's a very busy man.
God is garden and landscaping. For your home and landscaping needs.
Well, bloody hell, Glenn. What a great guy. Hey?
What a character. You know, if I walked into a bar and you sat down and you said, "Hey, Mick Webb, who have you worked for, Mick? You've built cars and motors and that for who, mate?" "Oh, well, that's okay. Just Allan Moffat, Colin Bond, best mates with Jimmy Richards."
Yeah.
It keeps going, mate.
I rang him the other day. I don't know if we talked about this, but I rang him the other day to line up this interview, and he just said, "I've just got to move away from the table. We're just having some lunch with Jim Richards." And I'm like, "What?
Yeah, what?
What? Are you serious?" So,
He's just a world of knowledge, and but the other thing, he's just an all-round great guy.
yeah.
And he tells it as it is, and I love that. And he's, I think he's going to say, I think it comes out later, he's going to have a book come out too,
Yes,
mate. So
yes.
we'll.
I'll be first in line, mate, to get that one.
We'll be reading that. It'll be a good read when he gets it all together. So
And might
remember that.
get him back, hopefully, for a book launch.
Oh, we will, and hopefully might get him and Jimmy on
Yes.
the show.
Yes. So there you go, guys. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. Obviously pre-recorded. We couldn't go live on that one, but we'll be back in another fortnight with another show or guest. We'll see what
We've had
happens.
some great ones. We've already started this year off since we've come back, and we as we said, we're doing a few things different. But Scotty Wade,
Big thank you,
and
Scott.
now, thanks, Scotty, and now Mickey Webb. So all viewers look forward to our up and coming shows. Well done, Jeff.
Woo! And thank
And
you.
Al.
And thank you to
And
Brett.
Al. Sorry for all the technical problems we've had.
Oh.
Well done, Al.
Oh, let's not talk about that.
And a big thank you also to Brent Forsyth, one of my mates who
Yes.
actually lined us up for that interview with.
Oh yeah, look, I
with
did.
Mick.
I forgot that. So well done, Brent. So thanks for that, mate.
And also, just
keep up
while,
the good work.
just while we're out there, if anyone out there has got someone that they know that might be interesting to interview, they don't have to be
Yeah,
fantastic sports people. We'd love to talk to them.
What did you say? They don't have to be a fantastic sports people.
They don't have to be a fantastic sports person.
They can be anyone who loves
Anyone who
sport
deals
in
with
any
sport.
Okay, let's start that
Come
again.
join
then.
us.
Boom, bang. And just, guys, if you're out there and you know someone or yourself who'd like to be involved in the show, if you're a sports lover of any kind, Gleno,
Any kind.
any kind,
Give
us a yell.
Even if you're a pretend golfer or something like me, and that they don't go straight. I could talk to you.
maybe not.
It'd be a long show if I'm talking about something
Maybe
like golf
not.
shots.
But yeah, drop us an email.
You
give
said
us a
anyone.
call. Well, she said anyone, not me.
Look, there's a lot of younger kids coming through that are sensational, and sports clubs that hopefully through the winter months that the three of us and lovely we'll all get out there and hopefully get to local and hear a little bit. Hopefully AFL's back, cricket's back, COVID's gone, and we're all back and we can get back on the Frothy show. How we love it.
Thank
Thank
goodness
you.
for that.
Have a great weekend. No, have a great week. Have a great fortnight.
Yeah.
Have a great year.
Just have a great time, guys, and enjoy. May your frothies be cold.
You're listening to the Friday Frothy. What a fantastic show.
What?
And of course, Glenn, we still.
Yes.
Of course, yeah, we're on. We're on, all right.